Hey y'all, welcome back to yet another edition of
Coffee
and Tea with the County.
So glad to have y'all back for our digital outreach series with the Aiken County Historical Museum. I'm Lauren.
Leah.
And we are sitting in the public safety exhibit in our basement area of the museum, which is sort of on the back side of our property. And if you've ever been in here, we're kind of famous for two of our engines that we have in here on loan from the city of Aiken. One is a beautiful 1940s fire engine that was purchased by the city, and another is one that was purchased by the city in 1880, and it's an old steamer engine. And guess what, Leah?
What?
We're not going to talk about either of them.
Don't say.
I do. Got to keep y'all on your toes, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Expect the unexpected with us. That's just how it's always going to go, especially on a Friday. But we are, of course, going to talk about our two favorite objects in the exhibit. So with that, would you like to move on to yours, Leah?
Yes, please.
All
if you
right.
would follow me about 7 inches that way. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me at this table. I have a table full of objects because I couldn't really pick just one from this table. I am fascinated by it. In the very back, which caught my eye first, is Aiken's very first radar detector for the police department. Lauren, if you wouldn't mind. And it's called a speedalizer. I almost expected it to say Acme's speedalizer on it. And if you looked closely, it went from 0 all the way up to 100 miles per hour. Watch out, you speeders. And then over here is the actual radar gun itself. And if you can see this, it's quite a bit bigger than the radar guns that are used today. And it has a little clip on the bottom. Quite a bit different. I bet it weighed a lot more as well. Now, my next two favorite items are these two sirens here. Now, this siren here is a pneumatic or a rotor siren. It was used by fire departments from the 1930s to the 1950s. And the way that it worked was the air, when you were driving, of course, the fire truck, the air would go in through this vent, through these holes, and it would travel through the back of the siren, and it would create, the flow of air would create the siren noise itself. And as a special treat for you, I did a little research before we started the video, and I found a pneumatic siren from the 30s. And do you see how it kind of wound down there at the end? And that would have happened when you were pulling up, the fire engine was pulling up to the fire, because of course you were slowing down and the flow of air would have went through at a lower rate and it would have made the siren kind of pitch downward. Now in the 1960s, the first electronic siren, this was our very first here for Aiken's Fire Department, first electronic siren. It came with the purchase of a new Howe pumper, which was delivered to the department in November of 1963. So this is our first electronic siren, our first radar detector, and then one heck of a pneumatic or rotor siren that was used from the 1930s to the 1950s. My favorite table.
Hey y'all, so we're over at my favorite part of the exhibit, which is actually this tree trunk that you see here with this hole bored in it. And you may think, how does that have anything to do with firefighting? And actually, so back in the turn of the century, around the late 1700s, early 1800s, if you lived in a city area like Augusta, where this tree trunk came from, then you would have water piped into your building with trees. There was no PVC back then pipes. There was no even terracotta pipes at that time. And so if you wanted water moved into your building or into your home, you had a tree board like this one. Normally they were cypress. They were trees that could withstand the water and were used to being waterlogged and therefore wouldn't have a lot of porous, water seeping out from it. And so this is an interesting one because in the history of firefighting, if a firefighting group came to your house and, heaven forbid your house was on fire and they had to get access to the water log, then they would drill down into the water log, they would bore a hole into it, the water would pool up to the surface, and then they could grab the water there with steamer engines and they could put the fire out. Now, say they wanted to come back in your area because maybe lightning strikes twice and your house catches on fire again, and they need to find where that bore was in the water log. And so what they would do is they would leave a little marker on the surface that would say, hey, there's a hole already drilled into this water log, and that way you don't have like 100 holes drilled into your water line, which wouldn't be great. And it would sit on top of the surface and let the firefighters know that that's where they could access water. Well, eventually what that turned into is fire hydrants. And that was a way of marking where there was a spot in the pipeline that you could access water. And in this case, it becomes more pressurized later on in the development of water lines. And you could have your fire hydrant to access for water. So it's kind of a neat aspect of our history here to go from tree logs that transported water to fire hydrants that helped out the fire department put out fires more efficiently.
Thanks for coming back with us.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us on another Coffee and Tea with the County. We hope you've enjoyed learning about the City of Aiken and the County of Aiken's firefighting and public safety department. So until next time,
have a great weekend.
Bye y'all.